If you want to know how to get rid of stinky contest breath, stay tuned.
How's everything with you? What's going on?
Yeah, I'll call you another time. I'm recording. I have a guy doing a documentary with me.
Jumbo Colombo.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your weekly question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, life, whatever is on your mind, it is all on the table. We're going to go right into the questions. The first two questions on this show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Question about macadamia nut oil. He says that he's heard you say that it makes your metabolism race. That will it work for him? He's a natural looking to gain strength and size.
You know, one of the biggest mistakes a lot of natural guys do is they don't take in enough dietary fat. And if you're natural, remember, all your testosterone, all the steroidal hormones in your body are made from cholesterol, you know, and made from fats, essentially. You know, obviously animal fats are the fats that contain cholesterol. But in general, I find that when natural athletes don't get enough dietary fat, and I experienced this myself when I was first being a natural athlete as well. You just don't grow as well. You don't grow as well when you're a steroid using athlete as well, but you can kind of cheat a little bit more when you're on the steroids, because the steroids obviously are raising your testosterone level artificially. But the idea that, you know, fats comprise the cell membranes of all the muscle cells that we're breaking down, when you repair those muscle cells, you actually need those fats as well. So you need to have sources of fat. And what I recommend is that you vary the sources of fat that you ingest. Some saturated fats coming from, like, you know, meats and whole eggs, some monounsaturated fats, which we know are the heart healthy fats, which also raise metabolism. Those are your, like, macadamia nut oil, extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, and then your essential fatty acids, which would be like your fish oil, which you get your omega-3s from, and which contains the DHA, EPA, and the omega-6s. Evening primrose oil, borage oil, great sources of that to get that gamma linoleic acid and the GLA that we need, you know, because we body can't synthesize these. So you need all these fats. But getting back to macadamia nut oil, once I started using a lot of monounsaturated fats in my diet, whether it come from avocados, whether they come from extra virgin or macadamia nut oil, I noticed that I started not only growing better and recovering better, my skin looked better, my hair looked better, but I also noticed that my metabolism was revved up. And the more of the stuff I ate or ingested, the faster it would go. So I literally now, I pour macadamia nut oil. If you watch me in my house, I pour it on my food. And it really revs up your metabolism. It's really hard to store calories as fat eating monounsaturated fats. Now, let me make a proviso for that. If you're contest dieting, you can't indiscriminately eat whatever you want, because you're not going to lose weight. You might not gain any weight, but you're not going to lose weight. So the goal is to lose body fat. So you can't just indiscriminately pour oil on your food. That's why guys that even cook with the mac oil, I tell them to kind of curtail that when you're contest dieting, because it adds extra, fat calories that we just don't need. But off season is great. Now, I was always an big extra virgin olive oil fan until I realized, number one, that a lot of the extra virgin olive oil on the market is fake, meaning they actually put soybean oil in there. They've done studies. It's terrible. The really expensive ones are good, but another problem with olive oil is once you open that bottle, you got about 2 to 3 weeks to use the thing before it becomes oxidized and goes bad. So if you have a bottle of olive oil on your shelf for like 6 months, throw it in the garbage if it's been opened. Likewise, if it's exposed to light, it destroys because olive oil is very sensitive. It gets oxidized really easily. These are not good things. Likewise, you can't cook with olive oil. So people who put it in the pan and start cooking and think they're eating healthy, olive oil burns. It has a very low smoke point, well under 400 degrees. So you can't really cook with it. You're supposed to add it on your foods afterwards for taste and that kind of thing. And if you know anyone who's like a good Italian chef, like my grandmother, she would cook with regular cooking oils, and then she would add the extra virgin to the food after it was cooked, just for taste and for consistency. When I found out about macadamia nut oil over 10 years ago, and I discovered that it's just as good. Matter of fact, it's got more monounsaturated fats than olive oil in it. And I realized that it has a very high smoke point, 425 degrees. You can cook with it. You can deep fry with it. You can saute with it. You can heat it up. It doesn't go bad. It's not light sensitive, and it tastes like butter. I put it on my kids like bagels and toast. They don't even know. They think it's butter. That's how delicious it tastes. And olive oil has a little bit of a bitter taste. So I've substituted all my extra virgin olive oil use with macadamia nut oil. And the matter of fact, as you guys know, I sell a brand of it now I've been doing that for the last 8 or 9 years. And it's a huge seller for us because there's not many people who sell macadamia nut oil because there's not that many places to buy it. It's not like olive oil where everyone grows olives everywhere, so there's a ton of that available, but there's not a lot for mac. I have a very good source of it in South Africa. And, we have the soil in South Africa is very rich in nutrients. So it's a bold tasting macadamia nut oil. If you haven't tried it, I really, really encourage you to go to speciesnutrition.com. You go on Amazon and pick up a bottle. It's absolutely delicious. And like I said, it's really a health inducing oil, meaning that you're going to lower your LDL cholesterol on it. You might improve your HDL cholesterol on it. You're going to increase your metabolic rate on it. It's just good for your heart. And I think it has a blood pressure regulating effect as well. I notice that when I'm using a lot of it, my blood pressure is on the lower side. So give it a shot. Like I said, it's probably one of the most hidden oils that people don't talk about. And the reason a lot of people don't sell it is because it is more expensive. But we sell it at a very fair, reasonable price. It's definitely priced right there with the most expensive olive oils, with the best quality olive oils, I should say. And, watch out. We do sales on it every so often. I know we have a new load coming in. Once we get the new load, we might actually do a sale on whatever we have left in inventory. The great thing is the stuff doesn't go bad. You can crack the bottle, and I'm sure you're going to use it quickly because it's so good. But if it sits for 6 months, it doesn't go bad. It doesn't oxidize. Great oil. Check it out at speciesnutrition.com.
Second question, again, these first 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Off season on non-training days, are the protein, carbs, and fat intake the same as on training days, or are the carbs reduced?
This is a good question. And, we've been asked it before, but it warrants repeating the answer. People think that they should eat less food on the days they don't train. Let me just tell you something. First of all, the training you're doing is not burning that many calories. All right. If you're doing an hour of weight training, you're probably burning a very minimal amount of calories. It's, you are burning something, but it's not like you're not burning like 300 grams of carbs. You're probably burning like 35 or 40 grams of carbs during the workout. Okay. That's number one. Number two, on the days you don't train, your body is metabolically doing more because it's trying to repair the muscle that you broke down from the days you are training. So you need to eat just as much protein, just as much essential fat, and just as much carbs off season when you're not training as when you are training. Okay. It's not like you're laying in a hospital bed. That's a different story, and even then if you had a surgery, you're recovering from the surgery. So I never take away food. Okay. Especially in a scenario where you're trying to grow. It's just not a good idea. Now, if you tend to get fat easily, you might want to carb cycle in your off season, meaning that some days might be higher days than other days, or you might be at a static amount of carbs, which is what I do with my clients. And then if I see them getting a little accumulating too much body fat, I might cut them back a little bit or give them a little cardio. But you don't want to restrict just because you're not going to the gym that day. That's like a mental thing. and look, I've gone through it too. You think, oh, I'm not exercising today. I better not eat as much. I'm going to get fat. That's not the case. Don't fall into that trap. By the way, these are 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. If you guys have not subscribed, it's $29 a month. You can download it from your Android, iTunes store. It's all my videos, all my writings I've ever done in one place. It's all my diets and protocols and drug cycles. We do a Q&A video every single week just for the app members. So it's like a separate Ask Dave, and I answer everyone's questions in an open forum in the app. So you see everyone's questions and everyone's answers. It's a really good learning experience. And it's like a constant continuing education type of situation you have in your back pocket. Because as I learn or as I come up with new things, I put it onto the app. And that's what you want to continue to do. The day you stop learning is the day that you stagnate and you fall behind everyone else. So check out the app. And thank you guys for all the support over the years. I can't hear you, Sid.
Of course, I always have that mute button. Those 2 first questions were from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. We now take questions from our Instagram page, from our YouTube community, various social media outlets. Minchinator PT, the best way to control bad breath on a contest diet? Is it just a high protein, low carb diet that does it? Or does the upped drugs run contribute as well? Brush and gargle all that I can.
There's 3 reasons you have stinky breath, okay? Number 1, and this is probably the number 1 reason I think that most contest people, and I've dated girls, and so I they've had stinky breath. The reason they get stinky breath is because you tend to overspice your foods when you're dieting because you're so hungry and you want things to taste so exquisite, the small amounts of food you're doing, that people tend to put a lot more spices on their food. I noticed in the pre-contest, a lot more onions, garlicky stuff. And I noticed that people get bad breath. My ex-wife, my first wife, she would eat like almost a whole onion at every meal, like because she thought it was like free calories. And the onion smell coming out of her breath was horrendous. And I had to tell her, I said, listen, you can't be eating this much. A little onion is fine. You can't eat a whole onion, 3 times a day. So a lot of that bad breath is from the spices that people use. Because ketone breath, which a lot of us think of as bad breath, is not bad breath. If you have ketone breath, meaning that you're in ketosis because you're on a low carb diet and your brain is burning, ketones for fuel and you're breathing them out because some of the ketones, acetone comes out of your breath. It's actually a fruity smell. So that's not a bad smell, the ketone breath. So it's usually the spices. If you have like an ammonia smell, which is a nasty, like bad breath smell, which is not from your breath, it's an internal odor. That usually means that you have too much ammonia. You're too acidic. And a lot of times you got to do something like a liver detox, like a product like I sell on DavePalumbo.com. Liver Stable is good, or buy some Tudka, or take some Bragg's apple cider vinegar to try to neutralize some of the acidity in your body. That can happen sometimes too. There's actually a 4th proviso too. I don't really see guys doing it that much these days, but back in the 90s we used to use DMSO. We would rub it on with triacana cream and thiomucase because we thought it would dehydrate and make the shrink the fat cells. And if you use DMSO, it's a great anti-inflammatory, but it gives you the worst breath. It's like a garlicky breath. That's probably the 4th, but that doesn't, that's not related to necessarily contest prep. A lot of times guys have that in the off season because they're doing it as an anti-inflammatory. But the 3 things in contest is fruity flavor from ketones. That's not bad. Overspicing the food, I think, is the number 1 reason. And then over-acidified or toxic smell is not good either. I had a friend who was having a smell. I kept telling him, I smell this ammonia smell coming off you. He thought his clothes weren't getting cleaned in the washing machine. I said, listen, it's coming from you're sweating it out. And I think he was drinking too many beers, and I think his liver couldn't keep up with the detoxification of all the alcohol. And I think that it wasn't alcohol coming out, but it was actually an ammonia smell because his body was getting a little toxic. As soon as he stopped and cut it back, smell went away. So there you go.
I have to ask, during your peak and you experienced the same thing, how often would you brush, gargle, or whatever during the course of a day?
I have the sweetest breath of all time. No, you know what I would do nowadays, my friend Charlie Arms would always say, whenever he was walking around, if a friend of his had bad breath, he'd hand him a stick of gum. A stick of like minty sugar-free gum. He'd be like, take the stick, you need it, But I was a neurotic I'm a neurotic flosser, you know that, Sid. So I floss a lot during the day, and I don't really brush my teeth in the middle of the day, but I might, chew a piece of sugar-free gum or something like that just to get that, taste out of my mouth in between meals. For a while, I was wearing Invisalign. I don't remember what year that was. It was probably like 04, 05. I was wearing Invisalign, and Invisalign are these like little retainers that pop into you pop them onto your teeth, and they start and they correct your bite or something, or they can align your teeth properly. But you have to take them out when you eat. So every time I would take them out, every meal, I had 6 meals a day, I was flossing and then brushing my teeth and then putting the retainers back in. And that was a neurotic, OCD type of thing I had going on. But on a normal basis, like now, I might floss a couple times a day after like meals and stuff like that, just to kind of get the remnants of the food out from, so that you don't get gum disease. But I'm not a neurotic like brusher, because I think if you brush your teeth too much, you actually wear away your gums. That's what I've read, and the dentist told me the same thing. So you're better off flossing, and then, if you're not dieting, you can put a piece of sugar-free gum in your mouth, and that kind of, gets the saliva going and kind of cleans up your teeth without that forceful brushing that you're going to be doing. If you brush 6 times a day, not good for your gums.
Question about CRISPR, mRNA, et cetera, advanced technology, that we will have a real myostatin inhibitor in the next 5 to 10 years. How much of a game changer would a true myostatin inhibitor be? Would it be the ultimate PED to end all PEDs?
I think right now we have the technology to cut out the myostatin gene, and it might even be out there already. I don't know if it's floating around the bodybuilding circles yet, but it's certainly in the labs where they have the technology to probably remove the myostatin gene. It's a little scary because you're permanently changing your DNA. You're cutting out a gene that's in all your cells. I don't know what the ramifications are of that. Let's assume that there are no negatives, because there are people who have no myostatin. Flex Wheeler has no myostatin. He doesn't produce any. And there are babies that are born all the time that are myostatin negative with no myostatin production. So we know that it's not like a situation where you're going to die from it. So let's assume we can trim it out of the body accurately, and not have any negative side effects to it. How much muscle growth would we get from it? Well, I mean, Flex Wheeler doesn't have any. He was big, but he wasn't like bigger than Ronnie or bigger than Dorian. So what I think it'll enable you to do is reach your true potential easier. Okay. In other words, you'll grow easier. I don't necessarily know if you'll be bigger than everyone else because of that, but I think I have to imagine that bodybuilders will get bigger than they are now. Bigger in what direction? That remains to be seen. Maybe guys won't work as hard. Maybe it'll come easier. People won't train as hard as they did when they didn't have the myostatin inhibitor. So we might not see guys that much bigger. You might see 1 or 2 freaks. Like you might see another Ronnie Coleman pop up out of nowhere, because you might have someone with that mindset that I want to be the hugest monster in creation, and they're myostatin negative, and they got all the other drugs on top of that. You might see 1 or 2 random people pop up like that. But I think in general, we're going to see guys a little bigger, maybe 10% bigger. I don't think we're going to see them to be 25% bigger, though. I just don't think that's going to happen. Once again, when things come easier to people, they don't tend to work as hard, and that's just human nature. So I think it's going to make it easier to get bigger. We might see more big guys, but we're not going to necessarily see guys that are like 350 pounds on stage.
We've been doing this show for, I want to say, about a decade now. So time and time again, you are going to get people who just want to know your opinion. Name the anabolic, name the PED. And obviously it'll be an opportunity for you to give a bit of a refresher on your takes. Alpha Genetic wants to know your opinion on Anavar.
Great drug for women. I have yet to see Anavar cause any serious side effects in any women. Once in a blue moon, like I've had maybe one, I think it's only been one client that actually got a little raspy in the voice from it, and we had to stop it. I've never seen Anavar affect anyone else's voice except for this one woman, and maybe she just was very sensitive to it, or maybe she was taking something else that I wasn't aware of. But it's very well tolerated for women, and it builds muscle, because you got to remember, women have very, very sensitive androgen receptors. Why is that? Why are their androgen receptors better than men's androgen receptors? Well, because they don't produce a lot of testosterone. They produce a hormone from the adrenal glands called DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone. and a small percentage of that converts to testosterone in their body. So whereas a man's total testosterone could be up to 850 naturally, a woman's natural testosterone is probably like 25. So it's way lower. So in order for the androgen receptors, the muscle building receptors, to respond, okay, in a woman's body, they must be very sensitive, and there must be a lot of them because there's not a lot of testosterone naturally around in a woman's body. So when you put anything anabolic, any kind of male hormone into a woman's body, anabolic hormone that is, they respond very, 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 very well. So you put 10, 20 milligrams of Anavar into a woman's body, it's like a guy taking Dianabol, because they are so sensitized, their androgen receptors, that the Anavar has a much greater effect. And that's why you can, as a woman, you can get away with staying on only Anavar. Now, are there women that use drugs they shouldn't be using, like EQ and Masteron and testosterone and Trenbolone? Yeah, and that's fine, because there are women at different levels that want to get to a different level. They want to be bodybuilders, and they might have to use something a little stronger. But for the intro woman, or the woman who wants to be a bikini competitor or figure competitor, there's really no reason to do anything more than Anavar if you don't want side effects. Now, if you don't care if you get a little bit of side effects, then you can kind of creep up to something like Winstrol. But this is not about women; it's about Anavar. So what does Anavar do in a man? Well, even if you take Anavar as a man and it's your first cycle, you'll get some gains from it, but you're not going to get anything exorbitant, because once again, your androgen receptors are not as receptive as women's. So when you take that same dose, or maybe even a little higher, 30, 40 milligrams a day of Anavar, you're going to get a little bit more muscle growth, but not that much more, because it's not stimulating the androgen receptor that much. My first cycle, I've talked about, I took Primobolan and Winstrol, which are a lot stronger than Anavar. Anavar is the weakest. And I got gains. I gained over 12 weeks. I think I gained like about 8 or 9 or 10 pounds of muscle, but I had very well-trained muscle at that point, and I got to remember, Anavar, or Winstrol, I should say, and Primo don't really suppress your natural testosterone that much. So I had my own natural plus the stuff I added in there. So I made good gains with it. But after doing a couple cycles of that, it doesn't work anymore. It's not strong enough anymore. So Anavar is kind of like a weak drug. If I'm a man, I would rather see you as a first cycle, like I said, do some Winstrol and Primobolan if you're not looking for any side effects. Anavar is kind of weak. I know it's more readily available now, especially at the rejuvenation clinics and stuff like that. So maybe even a Winstrol Anavar cycle would be something that you could do. But taking Anavar alone, probably not going to get very much gains from it.
I am very glad this question was brought up, because this has sort of been, this is right up your alley. And I think it's up the alley of a lot of people who are always looking to, try more healthier alternatives to what's, currently in the food supply right now. Obviously, seed oils is a huge topic of controversy, and one that this current administration is trying to phase out. Tallow, beef tallow in particular.
Yeah.
From what is it better than seed oils? And obviously, there was a video about RFK. What was it, that restaurant that he went to where he was trying out the fries that were prepared in beef tallow? And the question is, I guess, from a taste perspective, is it better than food or fries in particular that are prepared in seed oils? So your opinion on beef tallow, is it healthier than seed oils? And is there any ramification on taste?
Well, beef, is an animal source of fat. Lard also fits in that category. It's very stable when you heat it up. So saturated fats, even butter for that instance, you're better off putting butter in a pan, okay, than using, like margarine or spray oils like, sunflower oils and stuff like that, or seed oils, because they burn. And when they burn, they become rancid and they become very unhealthy for you. So you can't heat those oils up, okay? So when you're deep frying French fries in, sesame oil or sunflower oil, whatever they're using, soybean oil, it's like a toxic, you're producing toxic byproducts. And that's what Kennedy's talking about. Frying fries in beef tallow or butter or whatever other saturated fat you want to use, coconut oil, right? They're all the same pretty much. I don't think people would use coconut oil because it would taste too coconutty. But my point is, if you use saturated fats, okay, you're not going to get the toxic byproducts, but it's still not necessarily a healthy food. It's just not toxic to you, like the seed oils. We know the seed oils are inflammatory in the body, and they can, damage the blood vessel walls, and they can cause plaque formation and stuff like that because of that. So the government originally thought, and I don't know if they really knew this or they just guessed it. They figured, well, saturated fats they thought were terrible. They thought cholesterol is what caused cholesterol buildup. They didn't realize that it was really sugar consumption and seed oils that did it. Okay. Why they didn't know this, I don't know. And why they took so long to correct it. They still haven't corrected it, right? I mean, we probably know this for 15, 20 years already. And finally, you know, Kennedy's coming around to trying to fix the problem. And, you know, is it better for you health-wise? Yes. Is it still healthy? No. It's still, French fries are still not going to be a healthy food. You know, it's still a junk food, you know, or still like a cheat meal type issue. I don't think the taste will be that much different. I think the taste will actually probably be better with the beef tallow, but it probably will be undiscernible. You know, after a while, you won't even remember what the difference is. It's probably cheaper to use beef tallow, I would think, than it would be to use these seed oils. But, you know, we love our seed oils in this country because we make them here. You know, we produce them here. We love corn, right? We have huge corn. We make everything. We make gasoline out of corn. We feed corn to the cows. They're not supposed to eat corn. They're supposed to eat grass. We feed corn to the chickens. They're not supposed to eat corn. They're supposed to eat seeds. We make corn oil and we cook in it. We're not supposed to do that because it burns and it becomes toxic byproduct. So we don't know what to do with all the corn we have here. We have so much corn that we make high fructose corn syrup out of it, which we know is the most toxic sugar you could possibly put in the body, turns off the fat burning machinery, causes syndrome X and all kinds of metabolic diseases. But yet we keep forcing corn on everything. Can we just keep corn as popcorn or corn on the cob? We don't need to turn it into anything else because it doesn't do well when you turn it into other things. That's the bottom line.
We go from corn to injectable glutathione. If a person does not have glutathione injectable for motility, what should they do for it while they're using HMG, HCG, clomid?
He's referring to the fact that in my baby making protocol, that I give out for free. And if you want it, you can email me at huge285@AOL.com if you're having trouble with fertility with your wife or girlfriend, whatever. I am responsible for probably thousands of babies out there now. And once again, I give this freely because I want to see as many children born as wanting to be born. What I discovered by accident on my third kid when I got my ex-wife pregnant, she was, I wasn't on anything. I wasn't on no fertility drugs at that point, but I was taking glutathione every single day. And what I read after, because I couldn't believe I got her pregnant because I needed the HCG and the HMG before that. And I looked up glutathione and I realized it increases sperm motility, the ability of sperm to swim. So a lot of bodybuilders have enough sperm numbers, the sperm just don't move. And if they don't swim, then they don't do the job of fertilizing the egg. So glutathione is really good at that, which tells you if it can make the sperm healthier, it's obviously going to help our bodies also be healthier. Not everyone has access to it. My suggestion is if you are trying to get your girl pregnant, go to titanmedicalcenter.com, buy the glutathione from them. I take it every day, 1 cc, which is 200 milligrams. You can do it every other day if you want to conserve money a little bit, but it's definitely going to be helpful to do that. Once again, I had a lot of people, sometimes I get pushback from people when I send them the protocol. They're like, oh, the HMG, it's expensive and this is expensive. I said, listen, if you can't afford to pay for HMG, HCG, and glutathione, you shouldn't be having a child because diapers, formula, and everything else that goes along with the kids, cradles and sleep things and diapers, it's very expensive to have a child. Let me tell you. And the older they get, the more expensive it gets. I just bought my son an e-bike. It's fucking, you don't even want to know how expensive it was. So the point is that if you're going to have a child, you're going to make a financial, contribution to this whole child's life. Don't cheap out because you know what? If you take 2 years, 3 years to get your girl pregnant, she's going to drive you nuts and say that you're the cause of it. Don't cheap out. Buy all the ingredients you need in the protocol that I send you, and you'll get her pregnant as quickly as possible, and all will be peaceful in your house.
I'll take one more. We spoke on the phone the other day. You said you were making a video about Dorian, so yes, it may be related to this very topic. What did you think of Dorian's suggestions for high-intensity training 3 times a week, chest, shoulders, triceps, back, biceps, legs? Did you agree, or what would you recommend if you were to do 3 times a week workout? Any suggestions?
Yeah, if you only have 3 days to train, yeah, I think that his suggestions are good. First of all, I don't. 98% of what Dorian says, I agree with. Okay, there's one thing, and I put out a video that recently he had said something about insulin usage, and I wanted to clarify that, and that'll be out probably this week. Also, I was going to ask you, said when is the Dave Palumbo, Jumbo Palumbo documentary being released? I think Alexi said he's sending us the final copy in the next day or two.
We could go. What I was thinking of was, I mean, obviously it might be a bit of a stretch, but there are going to be a lot of eyeballs on us over the course of, that Pittsburgh weekend. So I was thinking, if we ramp up.
I think we should do before that because it's going to get lost otherwise.
Before that, yeah, it's going to be a stretch.
Maybe next. Right. Let's try to aim for the beginning of next.
We'll nail down a date and we'll put out a big, this date it'll come out or whatever the case. Right. We might even set one of those big, like on YouTube where you can set like a far advanced premiere or whatever the case be. I think we'll do something along those lines. So it's March 26th. Well, what would you say? You want to do sometime next week or in a couple of weeks?
I think at the beginning of next week will be good if Alexi gets
sounds good. So we'll lock down a date, and the Jumbo Palumbo documentary will go live next week. So
when are we going to release the Jumbo Palumbo single on iTunes so that people can download it to their
we need the full version. Do we have the full version of the song?
I will get the full version from Alexi.
No, because we need that. Like that is
you got to have that in your rotation of songs you listen to while you're training.
I mean, that we're talking about like gym workout mixes. That's how
we need what's that guy who does the mixes for us? We got to have him do like even a better mix.
You got to be a freak.
You got to be a freak. Yeah.
We got to get you. Got to be a freak. We got to. We got to get him on this.
Yeah.
That would actually be epic. Yeah, we'll send him that mix. Whatever. He could have.
Getting back to Dorian. Getting back. You only have 3 days a week. Yeah. I think that high intensity workouts. I would probably do chest and arms maybe. Shoulder, or even I would do chest and biceps, probably shoulders and triceps, and then back. We got to do legs too. So he only has 3 days to work out. So I would probably do. I think you got to do legs on its own day, and you got to do chest and arms, and then shoulders and back together. That's what I would do on the 3 days. And I would do once again low volume, like Dorian suggests. High intensity type workouts, and then I think that's the way to go. I've done 3 day splits. When I was having my kids and stuff like that, when my kids were babies, and I didn't have a lot of time to get to the gym, and it worked fine for me. You just in the gym a little bit longer. That's all. Because even if you're doing high intensity, you still have to rest between sets. So you're doing a lot of body parts at the same time. It takes a little longer, but you know what? It's only 3 days, so you might be there an extra half hour. And so I think that's the way to go.
And that is going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder right now on the channel, all new episode of the After Hours podcast, which featured, I don't want to say a cameo, but it did have Lee jumping in towards the latter half of the episode. We also had John Hansen, rumors of Rory Ledermeyer possibly making a comeback. So we also got the historic perspective from John Hansen. So really, really, really good episode. We had about like 9-10 people on the show. So, but a great episode. So check that out on the channel. Of course, Heavy Muscle Radio with Dave and Chris, and then Dave doing a reaction video to the news of Derek Lunsford entering the Pittsburgh Pro, taking the angle of obviously what it would mean from a historic perspective, from a legacy perspective, from a money perspective, as far as all the positives, as far as this being a quote unquote potential grand slam of bodybuilding, should he win Pittsburgh, should he then decide to go to New York, win that. He already has the Arnold Classic under his belt. And then lo and behold, if he goes on to win the Olympia in October, I mean, who else has ever done that in bodybuilding history? But the retraction to that, the downside to that is that doing all these shows, what kind of potential ramifications may that have on Derek for the Olympia being able to peak now theoretically for a third, if not fourth time come October. So check that out. That video is live on the channel. And then the Jumbo Palumbo documentary, we're going to lock down a date, but let's look at next week for it to go live on the channel. And yes, we will get the full MP3 of the Jumbo Palumbo theme song so that you can download that, have fun with it, and then, of course, run around singing the song. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss anything that we have upcoming. Of course, by the way, I forgot, the Detroit Pro this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be emceeing, but I'm saying this
It'll be
more
there.
from the perspective of RxMuscle. A lot of big names are going to be there. Samson Dowd is going to be there. Seth Barossi is going to be there. Obviously, Fouad's going to be there. So there should be some prime opportunities for some interviews. And then obviously we'll grab whoever wins the open class, whoever wins the classic physique. So we'll have loads of content from the Detroit Pro this weekend. So if you haven't done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss anything that we have up and coming. And then, of course, the Pittsburgh Pro and New York Pro, 6 and 7 weeks away. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Steve Faruqi. We'll see you next time.